Welcome to the podcast, Badass Mother Hustler, where the grit, stress, and the beauty of motherhood and entrepreneurship meet. We'll share the realities and stories of what it takes to make it all work and still be a badass mother. Now here's your host, Maddie Yaka.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Today we are chatting with Badass Mother Hustler, Melissa Yelito. I got that right?
You did.
She's a mom of two and the owner of Advocacy LLC. Every entrepreneur mother has a story, and we can't wait to hear yours. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Doing great. It's Monday. I've had a cup of coffee. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, we were just laughing how last week your voice was like not there because we were going to tape last week.
Yeah. Would not have been ideal.
Tis the season, right?
Yes, especially with little ones.
Yeah. How old are your girls?
So my youngest, today's her birthday. She just turned 3, and then my oldest turned 5 last month.
Oh, that's awesome. So much fun.
All the preschool germs in my house.
Yep. Yeah. Well, before that was daycare germs. So, or at least that's how it was at my house.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what your childhood was like, and does entrepreneurship run in your family?
It actually does not. I was actually the first in my family of origin to go to college. Both of my parents were actually mail carriers. My mom took time off once I was born. I was the first. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom up until I was in 6th grade, and then eventually shifted into the role of a bank teller. And my dad was a mail carrier up until 2018 when he retired. So neither of my parents went to college, neither were entrepreneurs. So I was very fortunate that they both worked very hard. I definitely got that grittiness from my parents. My dad always worked more than one job just to be able to provide for our family and just give my sister and I the most opportunities we could, and put us both through college. So just so thankful for that. But yeah, do not come from an entrepreneur background at all.
So if you don't come from an entrepreneur background, what gave you the idea to start your own business?
So I actually, and I say this all the time, I have no background in business. I actually started out, I was a teacher. So both of my degrees, my bachelor's and my master's, are in education. I was a teacher for 7 years up until I had my 2 girls. And then I left the classroom just in time for COVID to hit. My oldest was a fall 2019 baby, so I left the classroom just in time. And I was feeling burnt out at that time. I knew I kind of needed to step away to stay present just for my growing family. But I was missing, the education world, and I was just a little frustrated I was an elementary and special ed teacher, kind of bounced back and forth between regular ed and special ed. So had some frustrations with just the systems within, and fell into a nonprofit in the area as an educational advocate, and was with the nonprofit for 2 years, but just felt the need to expand the families that I was serving, the ages that I was serving. It was a specific county of families that I was serving, and I wanted to expand counties. I wanted to work with early intervention families as well. So I thought, why not just form my own LLC? I can make the rules. I can decide, what families I take on. And I just kind of came to my husband one day. I was like, what if I just form my own business and do this? And he was like, I think that's a great idea. And it just kind of took off from there.
So you were already out of teaching, and were you just at home for a little bit with the kids? And then that's when you decided to start a business, because you just kind of like felt like there was maybe a hole you missed what you were doing before?
So I was home for a year, and then I took the position at the nonprofit. I was there for 2 years, and then I felt like there were more families out there to be served, and that I kind of wanted to say and and who I could work with and the ages and all of that. And I thought that if I formed my own business, that it would be a better fit for my schedule and just more aligned with like what I was looking to do. So
I think you are the only teacher entrepreneur, like the only teacher that is left and have gone back into the school setting, because
yeah,
it's so funny. I've interviewed so many entrepreneurs that used to be teachers, and you are the only one that went
yeah.
back into the school setting.
Yeah. So it's interesting because families hire me. So I work as I work for the best interest of the child. Families hire me. I help them to understand their rights and the services that their children are entitled to. But I also go to meetings with them and just help advocate for their interests. But also I work to help them better communicate with their child's educational team. And I feel like my background in education helps me to do that more effectively. So I do feel like I'm using my background in education, but I'm more working on the side of the family versus the school district. So it's an interesting role. It's been a bit of a learning curve, but I'm really enjoying it.
When we spoke previously, you had mentioned just from like the teacher side, there were things that you were like, I just wish that someone would listen to me,
Yeah.
or yeah. So can you share those thoughts with everyone?
Yeah, I felt like as a teacher, I would, just from my background in special ed when I was a learning support teacher, and when I shifted back into regular ed, I knew what my students could be getting. And I saw that they were struggling. And so I would collect the data, and I knew I would go into the IEP meetings and I'd say, I think so-and-so needs this. Here's the data to support it. And a team of administrators or people from district office would come to these meetings, not having really met the student, maybe walked into my classroom for 20 minutes prior to
For
that
an
meeting.
observation.
Yeah. But like right before the meeting, not really taking into account when that student was struggling during the day, and that time not being the time that they're struggling. And just hearing no, when I'm the one who's there with them all day. Or other times when families would come into meetings and say, I have these concerns, and look to me as the teacher to say, are you also concerned? And it was tough because I felt like as a teacher, I couldn't always speak up because of what the district's, I guess, position was. And I feel that in meetings now as an advocate, but now as an advocate, I could look to the teacher and say, are you seeing this? I could ask very direct questions.
You were there. You
out
know
of them.
what
Yeah.
to ask. So
Yes.
yes, to get the information that you need across, you know what to ask because you were in their shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't want to offer it up when you're the teacher at the table. But if someone directly asks you, yeah, you're going to answer the question and be honest because, teachers, I say all the time, it's not the teachers. Teachers have the very best intentions. They want all students to succeed. It's just the system. There's something with the system, and it's many things. And I won't put everyone through it today, but
the good old system. There are a lot of systems that are broken and need to be fixed.
I know. So, and I feel like that's part of my role. And I'm just the type of person, even when I was a teacher, I have a hard time when I see that something is not working well or that we are not doing right by kids. I have a hard time staying quiet and just going along with what somebody is telling me. So I feel like shifting into the role of an advocate was a good career move for me, and just more fits my personality.
So for our listeners, what does an advocate do and how does an advocate end up at a meeting?
So families will come to me at all points in the process. Some families will reach out prior to their child being evaluated and say, I've requested a special education evaluation 2 times and the district keeps telling me, no, they don't see it. they're doing well academically, so they're not going to evaluate, even though my kid is struggling so much socially, emotionally, etc. Can you please help me get this evaluation? So that's something that I can do. Other times families will say, my child just qualified for services. I just received this 80-page evaluation report. Help me. There's all of these terms and I don't understand what any of this means. And now I have to go to a meeting and plan for the IEP. What will this instruction look like? What services is my child entitled to? And then other times I get a phone call and it's like crisis. My child is in a partial hospitalization program, or my child will not go to school. My child has not made progress on their IEP goals for 2 years. The district is not doing anything to adjust their programming based on that. I really need an expert to tell me where to go next. So the family will then bring me on, and I will walk them through. I'll look at all of the documentation, and then just walk them through their options. And then they could bring me into a meeting. I'll work with the school team on taking a look at the plan, making sure it's meeting the child's needs. If it's not, potentially revising the plan or looking at a placement that can meet the child's needs. But yeah, essentially, I end up at the meeting because the parent wants me there, so that I'm typically well received, I think, because of my background as a teacher. But I always tell families, if it was tense to begin with, it's probably going to be tense when I come to the first meeting. But my role is to really just help mend that homeschool relationship, because we're not going to get anything done if both sides are at odds and nobody's getting along. So.
Have there been meetings where it's like really awkward?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
And I find that when it gets to that, I kind of take a step back, and this is where, me being a parent and a former teacher, that tends to happen when the school district is thinking based on facts, and the family is oftentimes thinking based on emotions. And I need to take the family from emotions, yes, super valid, a huge piece of this, but thinking from emotions a little bit more towards facts. And I need to take the district from facts a little bit more towards emotions and get everybody to somewhere in the middle. Because there's oftentimes just a breakdown in communication. And if I could see where that breakdown is and we can work through that, oftentimes they're saying the exact same thing. They're just not speaking the same language. So if I could figure out what everybody is trying to say and find some sort of common ground, and we can find a way to move forward, that's typically, best case scenario.
That is such a good point that you said that everyone is saying the same thing but speaking a different language. Yeah. About how many meetings do you go to a week?
Oh, it could vary. Today I have 3. It maybe 5 to 7. During like a busy time, up to 10.
Wow.
Slower weeks, 2 to 3.
Yeah. And
it
you
really
serve more than just Chester County.
Yes. Chester County, Delaware County, Montgomery County. I have a case out in Lancaster. I took a case up in Bradford, Pennsylvania, which is about 5 hours away. So I did drive out there. Yes. So I actually had a client that was placed out there a few years ago in a residential program. He was from a local school district, and then he got placed out there. So I worked with a school district out that way. And so I was familiar, and a family out there contacted me because there are no advocates out there. And they found my information and they just said, here's the situation. Can you help us? Will you help us? And I was like, absolutely. This is a hot mess. I will help you.
They sent you the documents and you read it.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm going to help you. We're going to make some shit right.
Yes. So I we got independent evaluation. I went out for a meeting. We kind of reshaped the whole IEP. And now we're just waiting for the independent evaluation to come back. And then I'll probably go out there again. So, yeah.
Most of these meetings are after school, correct?
Most of them are first thing in the morning prior to school starting, like the last hour of the day. Sometimes meetings will happen during the school day, like during the teacher's prep period. It really depends.
So then what is that juggle like as a mom of a 5 and a 3-year-old?
It's an interesting juggle. So my husband's job is, as of right now, pretty flexible. In January, he has to go back to the office 5 days a week. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. Thank you, Amazon. But he right now on the mornings where I have like an 8:20 meeting, he'll just drop the girls at school, or we have our sitter come early for my younger one. And then in the afternoons, we just have a sitter with the girls anyways. So that's fine. So yeah, it's constant shifting. I feel like that's just the best way to put it. It's not a 9-to-5 job. So it's just constant, like we have to sit down like almost every night. Like I have a meeting at this time, you have a meeting at this time, the kids have to be here, the sitter can't come until this time, or the sitter is sick, and what do we do? And so
now with you working in schools and stuff, is it slower in the summer for you?
it is. Last summer was much slower. This summer was actually I had a lot more meetings in July than I thought I would. I had a lot of students transitioning from early intervention to kindergarten. So a lot of those meetings happen in the summer to get them ready and just get their program set up. So I did have more meetings, but it definitely was slower. So I did still kind of get a little bit of a summer with my kids like I would have if I was a teacher, which was nice.
What age range are you normally an advocate for?
So I will take on a client as soon as they turn 3 and they qualify for the IEP. I will actually take them on like as they're transitioning from that. It's called an IFSP when you're in birth to 3 services, and you're transitioning to an IEP when you turn 3. And then all the way up through high school and transition years until the eve of your 22nd birthday now. Well, for right now.
Yeah. So I didn't know that you worked with kids that were on the older side.
Yeah.
Because you said like, oh, now I get to choose the age that I want to work with. So I thought maybe you had narrowed down.
No, it's kind of a spread. I definitely specialize more in the early elementary, early intervention ages, but I do have, there's kids that I've had since middle school that are now high school and getting up there and are going to graduate. I had my first high school senior graduate this past spring. So that was really cool to see. And he's off at college now and doing really well. So yeah.
Now, you said you can work with kids up until they turn 22, but is that going to change? You kind of made it sound like it might change.
So it was during COVID. So it used to be 21. And during COVID, they upped it to the eve of their 22nd birthday. So it will just depend on what Pennsylvania determines for however long that lasts.
Yeah. So, is that supposed to expire soon or something?
They just passed it, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
So for right now.
So building a business, what are some struggles or obstacles you overcame as a mom and an entrepreneur?
I think just finding the time, honestly, and I think setting boundaries was kind of difficult for me. It's tough when I was a teacher. Well, that was also tough, me setting boundaries in general. But you would go into school and you would have your kind of set hours that you were in the building, and then you would come home.
And grade papers all night long.
Yeah, and answer emails and all of that. But at least it was kind of like I am doing the bulk of my work during these hours. that as an entrepreneur with kids that are home, and I work 20 hours a week. Last year I was working like 10 to 15 hours a week with my kids home with me part of the time. The lines kind of get blurred, and it's like, when am I with my kids? When am I working? Am I doing both at the same time? So I've worked really hard on setting boundaries of when are my working hours? When am I with my kids, so that I'm fully present when I'm working and fully present when I'm with my kids. So that was a huge, I think, obstacle that I needed to kind of overcome. And I feel like I'm finally kind of settled. An email comes in and I star it, and I will get to it when I'm back at my desk, which is great. And I think has really benefited my kids because I could be a lot more present when I'm with them.
Was it something that you felt that made you decide to try not to work when you were with your kids? Because I mean, for most of our jobs as entrepreneurs, like, we can do it from our phones. So like, you're with your kids and you could be doing work. Was it something that they said to you, or did you just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed?
It was a mix. I think I get overwhelmed. I think last year they were younger. So like at the time, 2-year-olds, like, you take your eyes off of her for a second and she's like climbing the pantry to get a snack. And I'm like, oh, okay, I will answer this email later. And then my older daughter will certainly call me out. Mommy, put your phone down. So, and I think to my clients, I need to be giving my full attention to their communication to me. And a lot of the time, if a client reaches out, I need to kind of look at a document, think about what they're asking, and be fully present to respond to whatever they're inquiring about. So on that end as well, I need to kind of be giving them my undivided attention.
Yeah, I understand being fully present on both the family level and the business level, because it was like 2 weeks ago and the kids had just gotten home from school and daycare, and we were getting into the crazy dinner time shuffle. And for real estate, like, a lot of stuff comes in at night because
Yeah.
people are back at their desks. And I was texting another agent, and gosh, I think I did voice to text, and then I just sent it and I didn't look at it. And then he texted back and he's like, none of that made sense. And I was like, this is why I can't answer a
Yeah.
message when the kids are pulling on my leg that they
Yes.
want dinner.
Yep. But I mean, it's a mix. Like, other times a client will call me and I'll have just picked my kids up from preschool. And I know, like, certain clients just don't care, and I'll pick up and I'll say, I have my kids in the back seat. As long as you don't mind, like, I could answer your quick question. They're like, oh no, let me say hi to them. And like, it's nice to like kind of have that human side too. And so it's a balance.
But also to have our kids like listen to what we're doing and
Yeah.
hear how we're communicating with people and stuff like that. Like, I'll take calls in my car, driving to showings if I have my daughter with me, and sometimes she'll know who it is, and from the back seat she'll be like, hello, how are
Yeah.
you? And then sometimes I'll tell her like, hey, I really need to make this phone call. Shh, nothing from you.
Of
So
course.
how do you see your business growing in the next 5 years, or do you want it to grow even more? Because last year you worked like 10 hours a week, you said, but now you're at 20 hours a week.
Yeah. That's a great question. It's been something I've been reflecting a lot on lately. Just because the business has grown a lot faster than I intended it to, which is great. I recently hired a business coach because I see the need to bring on an employee, and it's super exciting, but also super scary because, again, I have no background in business, and I also am just type A and I want to do things right. So I think in 5 years, I see myself having 2 to 3 employees, and really just kind of scaling my business so that we're able to help more families, but in a way where I am still involved in the day-to-day advocacy, which, according to my business coach, that is super unique because most entrepreneurs want to pull back and just run the business and not be involved in the day-to-day. But I'm super passionate about what I do and it brings me joy. And I want to be involved and be supporting families. So yeah, I guess in 5 years, I would like to see a few more team members, slowly bringing on more advocates, training them, and supporting as many families as possible.
So I'm trying not to use the word "so" a lot as a transition, but I'm failing. But anyway, did you at this point, so was it this year that you were like, okay, I think I'm at my max because I feel like this is a good balance with work and family. Maybe it's time to hire someone.
So in the spring, so last fall I worked 10 hours a week. In the spring I worked 15 hours a week. And this fall I started 20 hours a week. In the spring, when I was working 15 hours a week, I had to start a wait list because I was at capacity. There was 1 month where I took on way too much, where I was working too many evenings, too many weekends to deliver the quality of service that I promised to my clients, but it was also kind of impacting family life. And I realized, okay, I need to kind of start this wait list. I need to kind of go back to this nice little harmony I had going. So I started the wait list, and then summer came, things kind of calmed down a little bit. So it was manageable. And then fall hit, I was doing my 20 hours and it got very busy again. I had a wait list for a little bit and I thought, okay, this is happening again. I'm not actively marketing or going out and seeking out clients. It's more like word of mouth, referral based, former clients. Maybe it's time to bring on an employee, which is scary because now it's somebody else's livelihood and I need to be prepared. So, and I'm very much like, I stay in my lane. Like I know education, I know advocacy. I do not know how to onboard an employee. So I reached out to a business coach, and that's kind of the phase I'm in right now. And once we kind of wrap up our partnership, that's when I'll start looking into hiring someone.
Expansion is awesome. That is great. Congrats.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we'll see.
Are there not really that many advocates locally?
So there's a few different firms, I would say. So I network with a few other advocates. We do like a monthly advocacy roundtable. But there are just so many families needing support that there are just not enough of us out there. And I just think after COVID, there's such a need. So yeah.
I can agree with that because we were just thrown into something as teachers, and that's when I left teaching. Yeah. Your oldest and my oldest are the same age. We both had them in the fall of 2019. And to just be, and this isn't anyone's fault because we were all doing the best that we could, but to just be thrown on to have to teach kids on a computer for that whole March till the end of the school year and then start the next year hybrid, which I didn't do. I was like, peace out.
Yeah.
There's going to be some missing pieces and people are going to need help.
And there's still a lot of ripple effect of that.
Yeah. 5 years and there's still a ripple effect.
Yeah. And then the mental health piece, like a lot of the majority of my cases, regardless of the child's disability category, there's often a mental health component to it. So just kind of navigating those systems as well, because in the whole mental health field, there's plethora of, barriers, just like in the educational system. So.
And where do you think or see that mental health piece stemming from? Do you think it was from COVID? Do you think it's from technology? Do you think it's from something else?
I think a lot of it was Technology, for sure. I see a lot of my kids that struggled before COVID and then spent a lot of time isolated, struggled to get back into that social environment. So a lot of kids that might have had school refusal behaviors prior to COVID and then didn't have that demand and then now have that demand again. It's just been an uphill battle per se. And then I also think, the lack of, and like you said, it's no one's fault, but the lack of adequate instruction that took place. And now kids are behind, but we're teaching them like they aren't behind. And so it just creates this frustration and more anxiety in kids. And it's just a snowball effect. So it's a lot of different things.
I think that it's the steam plow of continuing to teach when kids don't get it, because we are trying to shove everything in for the state test that's at the end of the year. Yeah. So it's like, you don't get it, but we have to hit this chapter next week.
Yeah.
And I could just go on, but I'm not going to.
And I remember the rat race of having to get through everything. It just, I don't envy teachers at all.
It's a shame I didn't get to do like the fun exploration stuff until after the state test.
Yeah.
And the state test wasn't until like the middle of May. So what? I get to do some fun exploration activities for 2 weeks until school's over?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a shame. Things need to change.
Absolutely.
So it's not easy being an entrepreneur mom. There's a lot of juggling. How do you find time for yourself, and what do you do to recharge?
That is something I'm constantly working on as well.
You're like, that's a funny question.
Yeah. No, it's funny because my husband and I were just talking about this last night. I was doing yoga for a while and then life just happened and we were just talking about how I need to get back into yoga. I feel like it's just so good because I could just kind of shut my brain off. Which is so needed just as a mom and a business owner and just a professional. Like my mind is, I just have a million tabs open all the time. Like, do we need toilet paper? Are we out of pull-ups? Is my older daughter outgrowing her clothes? Like I just all day. So yoga is super helpful. I also think just spending time with friends away from my kids, date nights with my husband when we can. I also really enjoy, I used to be a reader of actual books, but as a mom, I have found that just doesn't happen anymore. So I'm a big audiobook reader. So yeah, those are just a few things that I do for self-care.
It's crazy. I used to read so many books before I had kids, and now it's all I can do. And I love to read, to try to sit down at night and have 20 minutes and not be exhausted. But last night, my husband started a fire in the fireplace and the kids got to bed early. They were in bed by 8:15. So I just sat there and I read for an hour and a half and it was amazing.
I'm so jealous.
I mean, I pushed off some other stuff. As a mom, there's a never ending list. And I was like, whatever, I'll just get to it tomorrow because we need to give ourselves some me time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to switch over to our rapid fire 5 and 5. What does your ideal chill day look like?
So this is a mix, and I feel like it's changed so much since becoming a mom. So on Sundays, my husband takes the girls grocery shopping, both of them.
You get like an hour to yourself, an hour and a half.
Yes. So, and he'll take them at lunchtime. So they go to Wegmans and the girls love it. They'll go and eat lunch. So it's really like a 2-hour ordeal. So I get
like a date with daddy.
Yeah. It's so nice. He loves it. They love it. I love it most of all. So like going to sit at a coffee shop on like a fall morning, my favorite, or just like getting stuff done around the house. And this sounds so silly, but just like being alone in my house and getting stuff done when nobody is around, just amazing. And then just spending the afternoon with my kids and my husband and doing some sort of a family activity, whether that's just, going to the park that we live next to, or we brought the girls to Sesame Place on Saturday, and they just seeing the world through their eyes and how much they loved everything.
It's so fun to see it through their eyes.
I know.
Like, my kids are 5 and 2, and it's just, gosh, I mean, my 2-year-old. So now he knows what's going on, and Christmas is just going to be so fun because now both kids know what's going on, and now they both are able to open gifts. So
Yes. So, I mean, just a mix of like some me time and some family time. Yeah.
Sounds like a great day.
Yeah.
What are you currently reading or listening to? I'm going to say you're listening to it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely listening to it, and actually almost through it. Demon Copperhead. Have you heard of it?
Oh my God. That is the book that I finished reading last night.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm listening to it. So I just became a court-appointed special advocate for Chester County and Delaware County for kids in the foster care system. And it was recommended to me by one of the trainers to kind of help better understand the system. And I am so intrigued. I'm almost done. There's like 2 hours of listening left. So I'm almost there. I love it.
That must be the hour and a half that I finished last night. Great book for listeners. Definitely want to grab that one.
Yep, for sure.
From a business owner perspective, who is your role model?
So there is another advocate that has been doing this for about 18 years, Maria Vetter. She owns Thrive Advocacy. So she was with a law firm for years and then just branched off and opened her own advocacy business. What I admire most about Maria is that she has so much experience, but she is always willing to just take anyone under her wing, and she introduces you to all of her connections and the community, and she's just willing to just build up everyone. She's not one to, there are some advocates and just people in general who feel very defensive and competitive, and she's not one of those people. And I just so appreciate that about her.
Collaboration over competition.
Yes. Absolutely.
Wins out every time.
Yep.
So what's the song you blast the shit out of if entrepreneur mom life is too much for you that day?
So this goes back to my teaching days. This has always been my song. Party Up by DMX.
Nice. Windows down on the way home.
Yes. And then the song, I always listen to Who's Afraid of Little Old Me when I'm pulling up to an IEP meeting.
Who's that by?
Taylor Swift.
Oh, okay. Is that a new one or an old one?
Yeah, it's a new one. So I've been listening to it this school year when I pull up to a meeting.
I am writing it down.
Yep.
And last question for you. What's some advice you can give a struggling entrepreneur mom?
I would say keep going. Life comes in phases. When you feel like giving up, just know, remember why you started in the first place. And just kind of go back to your why and know that, you will get through it, and just lean on your resources and your people. And what you're doing is so important to you and for your kids to see, and to whoever, your business is for.
All of that is so true. Thank you so much for coming on today's podcast. If listeners wanted to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to get in touch?
Sure. So my website is myadvocacyllc.com, and my email is melissa@myadvocacy.com.
Awesome.
myadvocacyllc.com.
Yes.
Sorry.
Don't forget the LLC. But you're also on Instagram.
Yes. Yep. My Advocacy LLC.
Yep. straight all across the board.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Your next level will always feel a bit scary and unfamiliar. If it didn't, it wouldn't be your next level. We will see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining this episode of Badass Mother Hustler. If you loved this episode as much as we did, and it left you feeling inspired and empowered, give us a quick like and subscribe, and we'll invite you back to our next episode. And be sure to share us on your socials and visit our Instagram, Badass Mother Hustler Podcast. We'll see you next time.